Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this latest edition of Arcana Unearthed with me, Wayne Ingram, Dungeon Master and Executive Producer, Bardic Quest, here on the Bardic Quest YouTube channel. Normally on a show such as this, on a Monday afternoon here in the UK, I would be going through all of the latest playtest materials. However, Friday this past week was PAX Unplugged, and the team at Wizards of the Coast made a rare appearance at such an event to announce a few things coming up next year, which is, for those who are not in the know, the 50th anniversary of the wonderful game of Dungeons & Dragons that we all enjoy. So I actually wanted to maybe do a little bit more of a news roundup this week, because I think there's some interesting stuff in here. I wanted to talk about it a little bit and go from there, essentially. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to park the playtest material stuff to one side for 1 week and have a look at some of the stuff that they announced this past Friday for the what is going to be, I think, quite a blockbuster year for Dungeons & Dragons 50th anniversary. I know I'm certainly excited. Running my games that I do. There's going to be a lot to celebrate, I think, next year. But anyway, let's get remotely into it, shall we? As we look at again D&D in 2024, the 50th anniversary. I have two pages of notes here from the PAX panel, which you can find on YouTube, by the way. It went live on Friday, and I was watching with great interest. And for those eagle-eyed members of the community on social media, I think somebody may have, and I'm no journalist, so somebody might correct me here and say, actually, no, this is common knowledge, it's not a secret at all, Wayne. But as far as I can tell, somebody may have accidentally released or leaked the, not leaked, somebody running the social media channels of Wizards of the Coast may have accidentally let slip the release dates, possibly in some social media posts which have since been deleted. So we'll see, and we'll touch on that at the end. But there's a lot going on next year that I'd really like to get into, that they did discuss. A lot of the panel, most of the panel, was them looking back in a retrospective at some of their favourite adventures. The panel was Chris Perkins, Jeremy Crawford, James Wyatt, and forgive me, I forget the name of the lady. She's a fairly new face, as far as I can tell publicly, to the top team there. I don't want to not get the name right. Amanda Hammond, I think it's her. She was the project lead on Fandelver and Below green screen, so you can't really see it, but it's a beautiful book. So they spent the first 2/3 of the panel doing a retrospective, talking about their favourite adventures and things, which was fun, I guess. But really, we wanted the nitty-gritty, which was the last 10-15 minutes or so. So I shan't keep you waiting any longer either. So first up, the first thing that they talked about was this descent into the lost caverns of Sojkanth. Now, I am less than familiar with the original adventure, but it was one that they brought up in their retrospective. The original adventure, which I believe is called just The Lost Caverns of Sojkanth. But I might be wrong. But one of the things that they did allude to, and this is why I wanted to do this video, because there was a lot of stuff that they kind of glossed over, said in passing, and didn't really go into much detail on. They had said, and Chris Perkins said, that their plan is, over this next year, 2024, to be running multiple events throughout the year in the form of short adventures. You'll have to forgive me, by the way. I am recovering from a cold, if you can't tell. So if I sound a little bit strange, that is why. So yeah, they're going to be running multiple events throughout the year in the form of these short adventures, which stands right to me because if you've been keeping an eye on D&D Beyond, they have been releasing these short little adventures, which is a fairly new thing. They're really leaning into D&D Beyond, and it feels as though that was a little bit of a test for 2024. So I get the feeling they'll be releasing these short adventures to purchase, no doubt, on D&D Beyond. And this is the first one, the Descent into the Lost Caverns of Sojkanth, which is kind of, I think, an updated version of the classic adventure. But this version is designed, and they explicitly stated this, to be completed in a single session of play. Which I think is important, because I think what the hobby is missing at the moment from Wizards of the Coast, and I've seen a lot of people say this online, and I agree, is more short adventures that have the same sort of marketing push. Well, not the same, but certainly a similar level of marketing push as, say, the main published adventures. So I hope that's where they're going with this. I really do. But it's good news to hear that they are planning to do, forgive me, these short adventures. So this is the first one, Descent into the Lost Caverns of Sojkanth, which I think will be released early 2024. They didn't say that, but that's the hunch I'm coming to based on what I have seen. And it's also going to come with, and this is a nice little nod to the early days of the hobby, it's also going to be coming with a tournament play score system. So for anybody that wants to play in D&D tournaments like back in days of yore, that is something they'll be introducing with this adventure. And no doubt, actually, I imagine as part of these adventures that are being released throughout 2024. These short adventures as part of these big events that they're running. Nice to see that they're leaning into the event stuff. I think that is a real, cynical of a view this may be. I think it's good for the hobby anyway. That's a real way to get people engaged with the hobby on a regular basis without the need for a big commitment. And that's why I think where 5th edition kind of falls down at the moment is it's a big commitment to start one of these published adventures, unless you have a DM that knows where to find the Adventurers League stuff. And even then, they're not as... Some of them are great quality, but some of them, so it would be nice for the push, the marketing push to come on these smaller adventures, because the Adventurers League stuff, though good, is mostly unknown. So, that is Descent into the Lost Caverns of Sojkanth. The next one, and this is the big one for me, personally, outside of the 2024 rules update, of course, is Vecna, Eve of Ruin. Now, if you've been following 5th edition since its inception, an average year will feature one major storyline. This is that one for 2024. And what's really exciting about this is they have said that this adventure goes all the way up to level 20. Finally, we have a published hardback adventure, such as Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is the first one I grabbed, that is going to go all the way up to level 20, which we have not yet had from a published adventure from Wizards of the Coast. So it'll be nice to see how they go about doing it, because it's common knowledge that running high-level adventures in 5th edition is tricky. So it'll be nice to see what the game architects and the game designers do with that. But, importantly as well, this is the first published hardback, I believe, to feature Vecna himself as the main villain. Which is a long time coming. I feel as though Vecna has been conspicuous by his absence in the 5th edition canon again since its inception. So nice to see him coming back. Again, a slightly cynical view on my part, but I think this is an attempt from Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro to lean into their IP a little bit more and get more out of the IP. So I imagine that this will be the first of many adventures in which Vecna is going to be front and center. Because really, when you think of the great villains of D&D, Vecna is probably the one. He is probably the one. You have Tiamat, sure. You have Mind Flayers, sure. You have Drow, sure. But aside from Tiamat and possibly Xanathar, who is really not as big in the zeitgeist of D&D players as certainly Vecna or Tiamat, I think you'd struggle to find a big, bad, overarching villain for D&D lore and D&D canon. So good to see him back. Good to see that they're leaning into it, and I hope this is like, if you could compare it to Marvel Avengers, that this is Phase 2, where we reintroduce Vecna and make him a big deal. But if not, that's cool as well. That would just be a cool little pipe dream. But anyway, I digress. So this adventure is also very much designed to be a 50th anniversary adventure. It is designed to allow players to hop around the multiverse, and that's going to be a feature of it, apparently. Hopping around the multiverse from levels 1 to 20, or at least I think it starts at level 1. It certainly goes up to level 20. I don't know where it starts. But leaping around the multiverse, featuring, to quote them, many iconic characters from D&D lore. So it is, as I say, written to be a 50th anniversary celebration. And one of the things that they did say was that the intent is for the adventure to feature a revisit to locations from around D&D's history, including 5th edition locations and also locations from D&D's earlier days as well, which is, I think, very, very exciting. I would like to put a wager on. I'd like to put a wager on that we might get a nod to Keep on the Borderlands. That's my little hunch. There's going to be a nod to Keep on the Borderlands in there. I think, and I suspect, we might get some of the things that feature in the Tales of the Yawning Portal, perhaps. Perhaps a nod to Tomb of Horrors as well. Maybe. That'd be cool. But it's basically going to be a D&D adventure of fan service. And I am here for it. I'm here for it. D&D fan service. Yes, please. So that is Vecna, Eve of Ruin, which I hope, I have high hopes for, certainly. Then we move to Quests from the Infinite Staircase. Now, I did just mention Tales from the Yawning Portal, which is an anthology book that came out in the kind of early in the 5th edition cycle, which is a anthology series featuring some of the older adventures that exist in D&D. I say older adventures. Many of them are 3rd edition later, but not all of them. You've got Tomb of Horrors in there. You have Sunless Citadel from 3rd edition, Forward with Fury from 3rd edition, which I'm currently running, Dead in Thay, which I believe was 4th edition, and a few others as well. If I didn't mention, Tomb of Horrors is also in there. This Quest from the Infinite Staircase is meant to be another book such as that features these old adventures updated for 5th edition in the style of Tales from the Yawning Portal. And like Tales from the Yawning Portal, they're putting it together in such a way as the DM could run each adventure as a campaign. So the idea is that this Infinite Staircase, which I must admit they said was part of D&D lore already, was not something I was familiar with, but apparently it's a way for characters to travel throughout the multiverse via this infinite staircase. So I need to look into that because I was not familiar with that. But apparently this cosmic being here is a new character, a new cosmic being. They wouldn't say who or what he was, but apparently he's new to the D&D canon, and they're shrouding him in mystery. So that dude there, and the Infinite Staircase are what are going to connect these things together. Wonderful. So yeah, so you'll be able to run that anthology of adventures as a campaign via the Infinite Staircase. Now, there was something that I did completely forget to get a screenshot of, which is a real shame, because this one surprised me. I didn't really see this one coming. They are releasing, and this got an audible gasp from the people at PAX Unplugged, the making of original Dungeons & Dragons, 1970 to 1976. Now, when they first put it up on the screen, I was like, okay, cool. It's a history book. Great. Fine. You know, we're going to go through and there'll be nice screen grabs of... Not screen grabs. Photos. You remember them? Photos of old correspondence, they said. So it's going to be a retrospective of the original D&D, complete with manuscript notations, they said, and correspondence between Gygax and Arneson, the original creators of D&D. And they also got on board John Peterson, who is a game historian, to help them chronicle the game's origins, which is all very cool. And it's going to be 500 plus pages, so it's going to be a tome for sure. But the thing that I wasn't expecting them to say, which is really where the audible gasp came from the audience, was included in those 500 pages of the making of original Dungeons & Dragons 1970 to 1976, as well as all of the retrospective, as well as all of the manuscript notations, as well as like all of the correspondence between Gygax and Arneson. They are also going to include an original reprint of the original D&D books, so that you can go out, buy this book, and have a copy of the original D&D rules, which I didn't see coming. I thought it was a really cool idea, and it's going to be a tome, as I say, 500 pages, and if I recall from what I know about the original D&D books, they were very thin, so I don't know how much of that is going to be the original books. I imagine not too much. But still a very, very cool book to have, just as a coffee table book if that's what you want, or if you do want to try your hand at the original Dungeons & Dragons rules, then you'll be able to get your hands on that as well, which is a very rare find. Most people can get copies of basic D&D, but original D&D much harder to find, so that was very cool. So, now we move on to what is really the main event of this presentation, which is the core rule books. Forgive me. They have said, and this is a running theme throughout all three of the books that they mentioned, this player's handbook is going to be the biggest player's handbook they have ever produced. They didn't specifically say how many pages, but I reckon, I'm going to go out on a limb here, I reckon all of these core rulebooks are going to be huge. I am expecting in the region of 400 to 500 pages each. And maybe that's me being optimistic here, but I think that's what we're looking at here, because they have said that each class featured in the player's handbook will have 4 subclasses, which means a total of 48 subclasses. There'll be new spells, feats, weapon features, etc., which we kind of know from the playtest material. But also one of the things that they really highlighted, and I've heard Jeremy Crawford mention this a few times, is that this player's handbook is going to be packed full of artwork. And actually, you can see here that this is an example of what the full page artwork that each class is going to get. So when their section starts, when it comes to the fighter chapter, for example, this is likely what you'll see. They have said that they haven't finalized this stuff, so it's subject to change. But that is essentially what you're going to see when you go to each class page. The nice little logo, a little bit of a blurb, the name, and then the big splash art for each class. So you've already got that's 12 pages accounted for already. Plus then, they have said that each subclass is going to have its own artwork, not a full-blown splash page. They did show an example. It's like more like a half-page piece of artwork. But even so, that basically means that each subclass is going to be at least a page long. At least. And there's 48 subclasses. That's at least another 48. So that's 60 pages of the player's handbook already accounted for just on classes. And that's assuming that the subclasses don't bleed over to 2 pages. I imagine that most subclasses probably will. So we're probably looking closer to 100 pages on these subclasses, plus 12 pages for each class, plus actually the main pages of each class, which is probably going to be another 2 or 3 pages for the core class. So suddenly the class section is looking pretty big already. Never mind all the new spells and feats, etc. And then they also showed this gorgeous bit of page, which is that the backgrounds, each background is going to come with this background art that you can see here. So above each background, you're going to have this kind of panoramic bit of artwork. Now, I can see where this is going in terms of the online character builder. I can see it now, right? You're creating your portrait, you choose your race, or your species, should I say. You choose your species, you choose your class. They get a character portrait that matches those based on all of the artwork that they've got. And then they stick that character's portrait in front of the background that matches the background that you've chosen. That's my hunch. I think it looked really cool. And you basically get your own custom splash art. I think it'd be a good way for them to use it. And if you hadn't thought of that already, Wizards of the Coast, you can have that one for free. Talk to your D&D Beyond team, and they'll get you sorted. But I'm sure they've thought of that already, because it's not that revolutionary. Now, they have said as well that this is going to be backwards compatible with past 5e adventures. They said on stage, if you want to take characters built from the Player's Handbook and run them through Curse of Strahd as the copy you already have on your shelf, you can do, and it should all work fine. And they have also said, and they've said this before, quite recently, and they've said it again now publicly at a convention, the intent, at least certainly now, is that if you have a Player's Handbook 2024, and you have a Player's Handbook 2014, and you look at the classes and you go, I really want to play a Druid, for example, but I think I prefer the 2014 Druid. That's perfectly fine. Somebody else in your party can be like, yeah, well, I'm going to play a 2024 Wizard. And that's totally fine too. They're not being too precious about whether or not you play one version of the class or the other. It's kind of semi-optional rules, which is good to hear. So with that in mind, I think that's a good move from them. Backwards compatibility. Look, whether or not that was their original intention, I don't know. There's a lot that went down in 2023 for Wizards of the Coast. I think the game designers have the best intentions, and I think they're doing a lot to undo some of that damage that the executives made, if I'm honest. And they're doing it in good faith. So we're liking the way that they're going. I certainly am, and the backwards compatibility stuff makes me very, very happy indeed. So good work from the design team, certainly. But yeah, I mean, this Player's Handbook is going to be big. I think it's going to be a big, big book. They have said it is the biggest. Now, they have said, and again, you can be cynical, it's going to be the biggest in terms of page count. But also, you could be cynical about it and be like, yeah, well, they've increased the font size recently, so of course it's going to be more pages. And yes, I agree. But it looks to me like they are ramming this book full of content, whether that be artwork or otherwise. So I can well see a 400 to 500 page tome. I think the Player's Handbook may rival the size of the Pathfinder core rulebook, which I think would be a good move. And I think if they can also up the production quality on those books and include some ribbons as well, that would be nice. They'll have some real nice collector's items, which I think is worth it. You know, we've heard talk of Hasbro saying that they're under monetizing D&D. Make these collector's editions with ribbons and real good production value, as well as all of this, what is, quite frankly, gorgeous artwork. And I think you're in for a winner. I think you really are in for a winner. But then we also have, they did talk about, and they didn't give us any previews of these, so there was no screenshots or screen grabs to have. They did talk about the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual. So the Dungeon Master's Guide, they have said they will be delivering more news on this next year. It's been restructured and reorganized, which I know they've talked about publicly before, to make it more usable and more accessible. And I'll be like, okay, cool. Well, we know all this. This is not particularly news. But then they dropped a few things in, which they've hinted at before, but I don't think they'd actually ever confirmed before, which was interesting. Which is that it's going to feature a complete, what they called a complete campaign setting. Now, how complete that will be, I don't know. But they're calling it a complete campaign setting. And James Wyatt said, oh God, this cough is horrible, forgive me. James Wyatt said, and I don't know if this was a slip of the tongue, but he said, and I quote, that it features several adventures. Several adventures. Now, let's just go back to my theory about these books being huge. We have the Dungeon Master's Guide as it already exists, but reorganized. Right? They might cut some things out here and cut some things out there. But reorganized with a bigger font size per page. Right? So we're already looking at a bigger book unless they cut material out. Then they throw in the Bastion system, which I think was a big hit. So I think that's going to be at least 20 pages. Because that's how much it was in the Unearthed Arcana. Possibly more. So 25 pages. Right? Then we have a campaign setting and, quote, several adventures. Again, I don't see how this book is coming in at less than 400 pages. I don't see it happening. Possibly closer to 5. And if they give it the same sort of treatment in terms of artwork as the Player's Handbook, which I think they should, then this is going to be huge too. I think we could be getting 1,500 pages of core rulebook at the rate this is going. Which would be no bad thing, particularly given the price of these things these days, now that the prices have gone up. But I think that'd be a winner. They also mentioned that there are going to be more and brand new magic items, including, and this was a nice nod and a bit of fan service, and again, we like a bit of fan service, that this was going to feature the magic items from the 80s cartoon series. So if you're a fan of the 80s cartoon series, the magic items are going to be statted up, and they'll be in there, so you can get hold of them, which I thought was a nice touch, and very apropos for the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons. And then finally, we have the Monster Manual, which is going to be 500 plus monsters. So again, the theme of more continues. 500 plus monsters, which is cool. We all want more monsters. That's fine. But one thing that they did say was they really wanted to focus in on higher challenge rating monsters in a number of ways. One, there are going to be new ones, and they teased a couple. First, they teased the Blob of Annihilation, which sounds terrifying, which is a CR20 ooze. And then an Arch Hag, which is very cool, and got my ears pricked up with that one. An Arch Hag. They didn't say what CR that would be, but obviously this is one of the higher CR monsters. They have also said that it's going to feature new monster art, which I should bloody think so. And they're also saying that they're going to introduce new NPC stat blocks because the NPC stat blocks have been so popular. So they're going to introduce more of those, which is nice. I like more varied NPC stat blocks, so that's good. And the other thing that they said was that they went back and looked at all of the monsters that were currently in the monster manual and decided that they wanted to tune them up to give them more of a punch in a couple of ways. So one of the things that they said, and this made me very happy indeed, was that their intention, whether or not they managed to execute this well or not is another matter entirely, but their intention is that for every monster in the monster manual in 2024, that a dungeon master should be able to look at that monster, look at that stat block, and see instantly that when they introduce this monster into the game, that something distinctive is going to happen, either as part of that encounter or as part of the game as a whole. So they wanted each monster to have a distinctive quality about it, which I think they had that intention with the 5th edition monster manual in 2014, but didn't go far enough. So I'd like to see them take that to the next level. We'll see. But if that intent is there, that is certainly a good start. It all then matters on the execution. The other thing that they said, and this, I think, you could hear the sighs of relief from the dungeon masters across the world. Higher challenge rating monsters are being retuned to deal more damage. So their CR to remain the same, their challenge rating to remain the same, but then to deal more damage, which I think is a simple fix, potentially, and again, it depends on how well they execute this, but a potential fix for a big problem for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, which is that it is exceptionally hard to threaten 5th edition characters using the challenge rating system. You have to kind of go against the system to pose a threat to characters. So this seems like a very simple way to shake that up a little bit. Just make those higher CR monsters stronger. Make them deal more damage. Make them more of a threat. And I know that Mike Shea from Sly Flourish has said on a number of occasions that he doesn't think high CR monsters deal enough damage, and he comes up with his own formula for what the damage dice should be. So yeah, that was very welcome news to hear that the high challenge rating monsters are going to be redesigned to pack more of a punch. And so then they wrapped up and said essentially that there's going to be more news coming next year, and that they hinted that the 50th anniversary celebrations will actually continue into 2025, which would be no bad thing, and I hope they release more and more nice, wonderful content for us all. But I noticed, and a few people noticed, and I don't know how long it was on for, because I was actually watching this half an hour behind live, right? And as I was partway through, I try not to do, but I picked up my phone briefly and hopped onto social media, and I saw straight away an image pop up with the release date for the core rulebooks. Now that release date, that post, was no longer there by the time I had finished watching. By the time I had finished watching these announcements, I had somebody else send me the same post that was on Twitter. I'm not going to call it that letter of the alphabet. It's Twitter. I don't care what anybody says. So they sent me a link to it on Twitter, and that post was gone. But it was the same thing. These images, and I forgot to queue up the images, so do just bear with me. This is going to look terrible when I do this, but let me just quickly add it so you can see it. D&D release dates. Let's see now. I'm going to do this as quickly as possible so you can see. I managed to grab a screenshot of it somehow, if I can find it. Where are you, screenshot? Ah, here we are. This image here. Core Rulebooks 2024. Releasing 21st of May 2024. Now again, I am no journalist. I said this at the top of the show. I'm no journalist, so this may not be legit news. This may be public knowledge now, but I still can't find those posts. They've gone. So I don't know if somebody somewhere pressed the wrong button and published these when they shouldn't. Maybe it is common news now, and maybe I'm just getting excited over nothing. But I can't see any. I've checked the D&D website. I can't see any acknowledgement of a release date. Again, but if you have, please leave a comment. Let me know how stupid I'm being and getting overexcited. But 21st of May 2024 seems to be the accidentally published or accidentally announced release date. I don't know if behind the scenes they were perhaps discussing announcing the release date and then changed their mind. I don't know. But all I do know is that these posts are no longer around. And this featured this picture, and also they also announced on the same post that Vecna Eve of Ruin was also going to be coming out on the 21st of May 2024. Now that's four hardcover books all releasing on the same date. If I'm honest, I just think this might be placeholder dates, or they're throwing around ideas, and that's why it was taken down. However, there it is. This image was taken from the official D&D Instagram. That's where it was taken from. So somewhere, at least a discussion was happening about the 21st of May, 2024, for the 2024 core rulebooks, which would track. I think normally when they have released core rulebooks, they have started releasing them in the summer for previous editions. So this would make sense. But not confirmed, but certainly suspicious as we look forward to 2024. The core rulebook release and possibly Eve of Ruin, the Vecna adventure. Again, I think they're placeholder dates, if I'm honest. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that we're going to be getting 4 hardcover books all on the same day next year? Do you know what? Stranger things have happened. No pun intended. So that's it for what they announced at PAX Unplugged on Friday. It's all very, very exciting to me. I hope it's exciting for you. I'm really, really looking forward. Do you know what? It got me hyped for next year. It got me hyped for 2024. And I hadn't been feeling the hype. I hadn't been feeling it. I was like, yeah, cool. New edition. Like, fine. But they've thought this through. There's plenty of fan service planned for next year. And I am here for it. Really nice to hear about the making of the original Dungeons & Dragons. Which is going to be released and re-released and repackaged. So I think that's all really good as well. Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to 2025. 2024. And the 50th anniversary of D&D. I hope you are as well. We'll be back next week for a usual Rush Bolt, just hopping in there. 5th edition was released in August at Gen Con 2014. Yeah. Yes, it was. That sounds about right. Yeah, because I think each book came out on a different month, if I recall. But yes, it sounds about right to me. Summer seems to be... I think 4th edition was also released in the summer of 2000 and... God, what year was it? 2008? No, it wasn't 2008. 2006, I think, might have been the date. Anyway, but I remember it being released in the summer then as well. So we'll be back next week with our usual playtest material analysis, possibly looking at the monk, maybe the barbarian. I'm not sure which one yet. But do keep an eye out on our socials. But it should be next Monday at around 12:30 UK time. And I look forward to seeing you there. If you haven't already, do make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Give us a bit of love and support for the algorithm. And do, of course, make sure that you smash that like button as well. Again, give us some love to the algorithm gods. Rushbolt saying that it was just the Player's Handbook in August. Yes. And yeah, I know they didn't release them all on the same day, which is why I'm thinking that May date might be a placeholder date. Because I can't see them releasing all of those books on the same day. But we'll see. As I say, those posts were promptly taken down. But that's it from me this week. And I'm going to go recover my voice, which is starting to deteriorate, I can hear. So thanks very much for tuning in. Do leave a comment, let me know what you think. And I will see you all next week. Catch you later.